Hello. Hola. Welcome to Witches of the Moon. This is season 11, week 1. I am the humble apprentice, and I am your new Friday host. Thank you for watching. Today's topic is our first steps on the pagan path. And my first steps started off when I was little, about 3 or 4, as I walked around and chased my great-grandmother around as she cleaned the house and cooked. And she would tell me these stories about magical creatures, and being a devout Catholic, that was, wonderful, because it opened my mind to the idea and the acceptance of magic. So one vivid story that I remember was about this she called him the avarice man. He didn't want to leave his treasure to his family as an inheritance. He didn't want anybody to steal it. He didn't use it. And he buried it underneath the stump of a tree, and then enchanted the stump to be protected by a magical bull. So every time someone went near it, the bull would come out and chase him away. And that was fascinating. I wanted to know where the stump was and if we could go dig it up, Anyway, when I was a teenager, you start to actually listen to what the preacher is saying, what the priest is saying, and you start to question, why is the male aspect of God more divine or more respected and more powerful than the feminine aspect of God. And so I started to feel less than and not as accepted, and not as valued. And it didn't sit well with me. Also, the fact that so many things were happening in the church, where the most vulnerable in the church were not being protected, and things were happening, to the charges of priests and nuns, and that were not being addressed in the way that they should be, so I pulled away from the Catholic Church, and I left it. It was challenging because, of the dogma, because of the guilt, because of how, if you're not of the church, then you're not of the ones that are going to survive, in the spirit world. So that was, of course, scary, taking that step, away from the church. But when I went to college, I began to learn about all the different spiritual paths that, to me, lead to God and divinity. So I lived in an apartment at the exit of a big highway. So that affected my health, and I developed an upper respiratory infection and asthma. And so I went to a doctor, and I got antibiotics, and a week later I was in the emergency room because I still couldn't breathe. And it was late at night, October 31st, coincidence. And I blacked out, so when I came to, I was petrified because I was like, well, I live in an apartment by myself. No one's going to know anything happened to me, So I went to the emergency room and I got a nebulizer, and I had a nebulizer treatment, and they gave me an inhaler. But I was still in pain. So I wanted alternatives to help heal and bring me to balance and help me breathe, because it was very disempowering and scary, and you don't know if you're gonna, die. So when I was getting some herbs for the pain, they said, well, have you ever tried acupuncture? And at the time, I had barely heard about acupuncture. It was a long time ago. And the girl behind the counter gave me the numbers to 2 different clinics. Well, I was so sick, I made an appointment to one, but ended up going to the other one that didn't have any time. They didn't have any space to take care of me. But one look at me, and the acupuncturist said, yep, well, put her in the back, please. Put her in the open room right now. And literally 20 to 30 minutes after he began his acupuncture treatment, I was able to take my first clear, free breath, since 2 to 3 weeks previous. It was eye-opening, because I had no idea that there was this type of medicine that it was so effective, and also that there was these pathways in my body that I can use that were available to work with energy and heal and change my reality. So that was one step. And anyway, I left college. I moved away, and I couldn't go to that same acupuncturist anymore. I lived too far away. So when I got sick again, I had a cold. I knew that I had to act quickly before it became an asthma attack. And the acupuncturist that I found in the yellow pages was very surprised that I showed up at his door. He didn't have a lot of patience, but I told him what was happening and what my experience with acupuncture was. And so he gave me a treatment. He also gave me some Chinese herbs that I was to boil and drink. And a few minutes after I left, I started to experience this tingling in the center of my forehead, around where the pineal gland is, in the third eye area. And it was like this beam of energy was being projected from the center of my forehead. And I could visually actually see this flower of energy and light, 20 to 30 feet up in the air, like a window, of light beams emanating from the center, like a flower, like a prism, almost like, diffracted light. It was wonderful. It was like I was connected to a different dimension, a different window in our world. And I did not want it to stop. It was wonderful. It was eye-opening again, but at a different level. You know, physically, I knew I could feel the energy. Now, I don't recommend that you go out and try to do this, because it is a shock to the system, and you want to get to this state of being at little steps. You know, I know that this was something that I had to go through, but I also had to work to heal this area and regain the actual size that it's supposed to be, the amount of energy and input that you naturally absorb. Opening your third eye in that fashion, it's a shock to the system, you know. It's not something to play with, and it was, you know, it was serendipity, you know, it was meant to be. Now that I am a Reiki 2 practitioner, I have worked to heal and bring this area to what it's supposed to be like. You know, the amount of input and energy that I absorb from people is manageable. So at that point, I kind of was shoved into the metaphysical, the magical side of working with energy. And I started to read everything I could and practice everything that I could, dealing with, you know, magic and energy and astral projection, dream, lucid dreaming, working with different deities. And regarding deity, I was reluctant, you know, coming from a very dogmatic religion. It's sometimes challenging to accept that there are different facets of deity, of God, of the God energy, that have been very stigmatized before. So anyway, after one of my Beltane rituals, I traveled to visit Cernunnos, and I was in his cave, and he said, well, I told him, like, I don't know you. And he said, yeah, I know, but you need this healing. So he gave me his energy, and it was very humbling, because he didn't ask me for anything, and I had never offered, you know, made offerings to him before. So I am now, you know, aware of his energy and his presence, and I'm trying to work towards building a relationship. But, you know, you take different steps at different times, and this is where I am now. Your path leads you in the direction you need to go. You start off going in one direction, and then Spirit takes you where you know, need to travel. That's why it's called the path, right? We're walking. And being guided by the energies that we focus on. So, thank you for watching my first steps, my stumbling steps into my path. So for all of those that are still watching, thank you for reaching the end of my video, and my sincerest apologies if this video is uploaded a little late from Witches of the Moon. I am the humble apprentice, your Friday host. Have a good evening and blessed be.